The Don Kroah Show on WAVA, with mere days away from what many would argue will be one of the most pivotal midterm elections in recent history in our country. I'm joined right now by Virginia's District 11 Republican congressional candidate Suzanne Scholte. She is indeed hoping to defeat Democrat incumbent Gerry Connolly next Tuesday. There's a number of accomplishments to her credit, including serving as president of the nonprofit Defense Forum Foundation since 1988. And she's also the recipient of a number of awards for her extensive work in the field of human rights. And you can get more information about her work and her candidacy at her website, SuzanneScholte4Congress.com, SuzanneScholte for Congress. We'll mention that again. Delegate to be, and hopefully that'll be the case. Welcome. Glad you're with us.
Don, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, give us a little background as to because I have such profound respect for people of integrity who get into this mess called American politics, and because we need people who really have their hearts in the right place and their heads in the right place. What led you to get into politics at this time?
Well, it's totally a calling from God. I have to be completely straight with you. It's not something I really wanted to do. I have been running this foundation. I've won international acclaim for my human rights advocacy, but I realized that all the work I'm doing promoting freedom, democracy, and human rights abroad doesn't really matter if we lose here in America. And I'm so concerned about what's happening in our country. It doesn't matter how many refugees I help or how many people I rescue. If America is weak, and I see what's happening all over the world with the persecution of Christians, and the freedom is being rolled back on nearly every continent, and it's very scary. So I went to my prayer team, who've prayed for me faithfully every week since 2004 because of my work in North Korea. And I said, people are talking to me about running for Congress. And I was actually, to be frank, hoping that they would tell me not to do it. And every one of the members of my prayer team said, no, you've got to do this. God's calling you to do this. So I decided to run for Congress. This is a district, Virginia 11, that's been gerrymandered for Gerry Connolly, who's the Democrat that represents it. You couldn't have a more opposite person than me. He's a very partisan Democrat. He's the one that made fun of people that were targeted by the IRS for their beliefs. He's the one that stood up for the Muslim Brotherhood when they were persecuting Christians. It's just a real contrast. And it's interesting. I actually won an award from President Obama several weeks ago for my volunteer work. But I'm just real worried about our country, and have been fighting for this past year to win this seat and bring good representation to the people in Northern Virginia.
Well, it sounds to me, from what I've seen and learned about your candidacy so far, that is much more of a possibility than Connolly himself or his supporters would like to realize. The incumbents, I think, often think they have a lock on things, especially if they've been in for a while, high name recognition. But from what I've noted, you even have some lifelong Democrats who are working on your behalf.
I do. And the interesting thing is that, when I first came to Washington, 25, 30 years ago, to work in this area and work in human rights, most of the people that I worked with were Democrats because they were the party in power, but there was a feeling and a respect between both parties about a couple things. First of all, that America needed to be number one, that America was the country that needed to lead, to be the symbol of hope for freedom for people all over the world. That was something both parties accepted. The second thing is that Democrats and Republicans believe that America was exceptional. We are exceptional. The amazing things that this country's done, and I believe it's because of our founding principles, our biblical principles. That's something that was always shared. That's really changed with the Democratic leadership that's in power today. But that's not the same for Democrats, average Democrats, and that's why I think they're drawn to my candidacy. They lead my Veterans Coalition, my Korean Coalition, because they care about this country, and they see it's on the wrong direction. And they do believe America needs to be strong and be that symbol of freedom and hope.
As I understand it also, you do have a lot of support. You've alluded to it, not only among the Korean population, but the North African population and the Latinos as well. And along with it, that some of these, as we just mentioned, lifelong Democrats who've come over to your support.
Right. And I will say that the Koreans have known me for 18 years of advocacy on behalf of the North Korean people. So I have a natural affinity with them because they know my heart. They know what I'm all about. With North Africa, the other people group I've helped is the people of Western Sahara. These are make the top 10 list of the most persecuted in the world. These are Muslim people that believe, and they've actually established a constitution modeled after the U.S. Constitution. They're in their exiled government. They're an amazing people. I've sent many Christians have gone to visit their refugee camps and just fallen in love with them. They're just amazing, most amazing people I've ever met. But in addition to that, I've gone to the Latino communities, the people that have come here from where they came here from North Africa or the Middle East, and I've basically said to them, you only came here for one of two reasons. You came here to follow the American dream, to live the American dream, because you saw that the great possibilities that America gave you, or you came here to escape tyranny or persecution, to be free. And they understand that that's what is at risk in this election. It resonates with them. They realize that they understand the greatness of what America is. And I've called on them and said, you're the ones that have to bring us back to our roots. You're the ones that have to vote this year and be engaged in the process, because America, as you know it, is in danger. We're losing that great country that had so many freedoms and was such a symbol of freedom around the world as well. You know, when we think about how the healthcare law is strangling our free enterprise system, when we think of the fact that the Constitution is not being followed, when we think about the fact that people are targeted because of their political beliefs, and the reporters are targeted for trying to report on the press, all these very cherished freedoms that make America great are really under attack by this current administration and the person that I'm running against.
We're talking with Suzanne Scholte, candidate for Congress from District 11 in Virginia. And she, of course, is hoping to unseat Democrat incumbent Jerry Conley. You can find out more and lend your own support at SuzanneScholte4Congress.com, SuzanneScholte for Congress.com. Suzanne, how can folks in these last few days be of real help to you?
Well, if they live in Northern Virginia, come join, volunteer in our campaign. We have got the most amazing campaign going. It's just all being fueled by volunteers and small-dollar donors. Nobody's really paying attention to this race. I believe this is the sleeper race of the country. We've got to win in districts like the 11th Congressional District, one of the most diverse in the whole country. And I would love for people to come and volunteer, but also if they can make a contribution. As I mentioned, I'm not getting any big PAC money or large donations. I'm getting all grassroots support. If people want to make a donation to help us get our message out, we can win this race.
And I was interested in one of the notes that I got about your candidacy. You are, as you've already alluded, running aggressive grassroots campaign, door-to-door stuff, and it reminded me of a mayoral race years ago up in Maine at one of the state's very key cities, where the Republican mayor had thought he was a personal acquaintance and friend of mine, that both were, as it turned out, but he thought he had a lock on the mayorship, and Spike Carey, some of you from Maine or know that area would remember the name. Spike Carey did what you're doing. He went door to door to door to door and really brought the upset of the decade by defeating this well-liked and well-entrenched Republican mayor. And I think that folks have thought that sort of approach is passé now, but you're getting out there. What are you hearing from that door-to-door effort?
I am hearing that people are very worried about our country. I'm hearing that they're very worried about how the health care law is impacting them. They're worried about the fact that I talk to a lot of small business folks. I talk to federal workers. About every fifth door I knock on is somebody who works for the federal government. People are hurting. And the thing is that the guy I'm running against is so out of touch. He claims that he's listening to folks, but he's not. He doesn't realize how upset people are and how worried people are. He has openly boasted about how the health care laws helped so many people, and it's a great law. But everywhere I go, I hear terrible horror stories of people losing their doctors, losing their insurance, not being able to afford their health care. So I think he's completely out of touch. So the door-to-door, going out there, I've actually been having town hall meetings. I'm not in the Congress yet, but I've actually had town hall meetings on veterans issues, on health care, just to talk to folks. People need to be able to speak to their elected officials. And I really believe this is all across America, that people feel that Congress has really lost touch on the things that they're concerned about and that they're not being listened to. And that's certainly how the Congress I'm running against, treats his constituents. He doesn't listen to them. And as you well know, when they had this scandal at on the IRS, he's the one that openly mocked people that in fact had been targeted. And it was appalling of how out of touch he was, but also just the arrogance of power that we see. And I believe that when people are in public office, they are to be servants, that they serve the people they represent. This is the model that the Founding Fathers, I believe, gave us. And I think that we have gotten to the point where we really have professional politicians that are more focused on getting reelected than on being those servants. And I do want to say, Don, it is so important for believers to be involved. We're only going to get the government that we work for, and we need to have more believers getting involved in this process. It really discourages me when I know that so many Christians just want to not be part of this process because they think of politics as kind of being ugly. But it's only going to be ugly if good people aren't in it.
That's
and
right.
we need to have good men and women be involved and be engaged in the whole political process is so important. I think of somebody like Sam Brownback, who I worked very closely with when he was in the Senate. Frank Wolf, who's retiring, who's been a leader for the persecuted church. Who's going to stand up for the persecuted Christians who are being obliterated and wiped out in Middle East and North Africa? And so it's so important for believers to be engaged.
Well, we pray God's blessing on your candidacy, and you're right. Folks, I've said it often. Somebody else said it, and I've never forgotten it. Years ago, I heard or read somewhere, somebody said, don't pray a prayer that you're not willing to be part of the answer to. So in this case, if you are going to pray for Suzanne and her candidacy, and you can possibly be involved by either donating or supporting her in some way specifically, especially in Northern Virginia, then follow through on that. But Suzanne, we wish you God's best and thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir.